Our president, Ms. Spangenberg, is recovering from some health-related issues, and I understand she's recuperating well. So I am going to call the meeting to order and ask our secretary to call roll.
Yes, Mr. Vice President, Mrs. Spangenberg is not here, but we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. In a moment, I'm going to ask that Dr. Swenson lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, but before we do, I'd like to ask everybody in the room to please remain standing after the pledge so that we can have a moment of silence to honor the memory of the victims of the tragic shooting in Connecticut last week. I also think it's important that we express our condolences to the family members of the victims and solidarity with the community. That was obviously a horrible event that struck very close to home for many of us. So, Dr. Swenson, if you could lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You'll remain standing for a moment. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a special presentation, but Dr. Swenson, you're running to the podium. I think I'm the special presentation.
As a matter of fact, Mr. Vice President, I would like to call you forward to the podium.
Thank you very much.
As the board and community know, Mr. Klein is leaving service for the board. He has concluded 4 years of exemplary duty. Oh, so, that's right, the law changed. 4.5 awesome years. I was going to say they were just exemplary years, but they're just awesome years of service to our community and to our school district, to our staff, and to our students. And on behalf of the board and I know the rest of the community, Andy, it's my pleasure, bittersweet though it is, to congratulate you and thank you for all you've done. And I will not open this because it's very heavy, but a token of our esteem for your service.
Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Given what we've just reflected on and understanding that it is always difficult to see the forest for the trees, it seems that tonight is a good opportunity to set aside the issues of the day, to count our blessings, and to think about the good things that surround us every day. So this is my opportunity tonight to do that. Tonight marks my last public meeting as a member of this board, and I want to use that time to express my sincere gratitude for the privilege of having been part of the Carmel Clay Schools. I'm someone who believes in public education. I am a product of public education. I teach at a public university. It may sound like a cliche, but I honestly believe that public education is one of the cornerstones of our society. Of course, there are those among us who disagree, but I'm quite certain that those critics haven't spent much time in Carmel, because if they did, I don't think they'd find a whole lot to criticize. In my view, there is not an educational institution anywhere that does a better job serving more young people than the Carmel Clay Schools. Now, there are so many people that I need to thank, and unfortunately there's just no way to adequately thank everybody individually. So I'm going to start with some general thank yous. First, I am so grateful to live in a community where so many people value education. This includes, of course, innumerable parents who provide such a backbone of support for this educational institution every single day. So thank you to all the parents and all the community members who provide us support. Similarly, I am so grateful for the teachers, the staff, the building leadership at all of our schools who are talented, dedicated, and continually focusing on the best interests of our students. As someone who has had children in this district for more than a decade, I can honestly say every single year has been a good one. So thank you for all of the people who make that happen. Also here at the EFC, I have had the privilege of working with a team of immensely talented people. You are a group, in my view, who are truly without peers, and I want to thank you for all that you do for this district. Now, I do have some individual thank yous, and I hope you will indulge me, that I'd like to make as well. First, and probably most important, I would be terribly remiss this evening if I didn't say a special thank you to my wife, Diane, and to my two sons. Now, they're not here tonight. They typically find better things to do with their Monday evenings than come to school board meetings. But I also know that there have been times these past 4.5 years where they have felt like they are serving on the board along with me, and I've been very grateful to have them by my side. I also, frankly, would be remiss if I did not use this evening to recognize the memory of my former colleague and dear friend, Steve Backer. Steve was my close friend, and I know that's true of many people here. I can honestly say that I think of Steve Backer every single time I step into this room, and I know that I'm not alone among this group in missing him tremendously. Two of my former board colleagues were kind enough to show up this evening. Bruce Calabrese and Jeff Carter, I appreciate your being here. I want you both to know how much I appreciate your friendship. Bruce, I remember during that difficult period of time after Steve passed, you took the mantle of leadership and chaired this board for several months. We reorganized the following summer, and I remember you had a conversation with me where you said something to the effect of, well, we all have our skills and experiences. Maybe wielding a gavel and using Robert's Rules of Order is better for a law professor than even, say, the mayor of Main Street. But you told me that you'd always have my back, and you did, and I want to tell you how much I appreciate all you did for me during that period of time. Jeff, I don't know if you remember this, but around the same point in time, we bumped into each other at a Carmel High School band concert. And I remember talking to you about the void that Steve's passing had left on this board. Of course, you'd already done your time on the board. You had every reason not to step back into the fray, but you did, and you led us through some very, very difficult times. You really were an example for all of us about what public service is all about. So I thank you for what you did and for your friendship. I have some colleagues on the podium I have to thank before this evening is over. Dana Kendall. In every organization that I've been a part of, there is somebody who is the go-to person, the individual who knows everything and everyone who can get anything done. In this school district, you are that person. And I can't thank you enough for all that you do for everyone in this room, for everyone in the community, and the way that you do it with your trademark grace and good spirit. Thank you, Dana, for everything you've done. This is getting hard. Ryan Newen. When I started on the board, I admired you from a distance. You had a reputation in this district as an outstanding principal. When you joined us at the ESC, it became clear why that was the case. Anyone who works with you quickly learns how much you care about the people you work with, and it's truly impressive to see someone who puts the human in human resources. So thank you for all you've done. It's been my privilege to be your colleague. Amy Dudley. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed working with you these past 4 years, particularly the last couple of years when you stepped into your new role, filling the seat of the person who became superintendent. That's not an easy thing to do. Your passion for learning, your desire for everybody to always get better is contagious. You are truly an educator who can train the educators. And I thank you for all you've done. I've enjoyed working with you. Roger McMichael, what can I say? Had you billed me for all the time that you spent explaining the arcane world of school finance, I'd have been bankrupt long ago. But seriously, when I first took this position, I remember going to ISBA meetings and talking to others in the governmental community, and people would consistently say, you're really lucky in Carmel to have Roger McMichael overseeing your budget, because there's nobody in this state who understands the finance of education better than he does. And today I know how true that is. I want to thank you for being such a good steward for our institution, for your leadership and your immense patience, and for all that you've taught me over the past 4.5 years. Thank you. Dr. Swenson. I was fortunate to join the board at a time when we had a strong superintendent in Barb Underwood, and the board was obviously concerned when she stepped down. We understood that finding her replacement would be one of the most important decisions we had to make. Well, in my view, we hit a home run when we brought you aboard to be our superintendent. You are a leader in the true sense of the word. You're hardworking, forthright, intelligent, compassionate, but not afraid to make the tough decision. It's been my personal privilege to be your colleague. I'm proud to be your friend, and I hope the whole community understands how lucky they've been to have you at the helm of this school district. Now, Layla's not here, so I'm going to feel somewhat like, who was the actor at the Republican convention?
Oh,
So,
Clint Eastwood?
Yeah, Clint Eastwood at the Republican convention this summer. I've got to speak to the empty chair. I first got to know Layla actually through an introduction by Steve Backer. I first met Layla when I was running for the board in 2008. And even at that time, Steve had tabbed Layla as someone who might be a good future board member. He told me how smart she was, how engaged she was, how talented she was, and as usual, Steve was right. I don't know if all of you understand how much Layla juggles in her life. She has small children at home. She's head of the Boy Scout troop, and she takes her time to be president of the school board. This organization is very fortunate to have someone of Layla's caliber leading the district at this time. Pam. Now, some of you know this, some of you don't, but when Pam and I first met, our connection was her daughter, Angela, who was one of my all-time favorite students at the IU School of Law in Indianapolis, where I teach. Angela is sharp. She is passionate about her work. She's fun to be around. And as they say, Pam, the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree. I have met few people who care about this district as much as you do, Pam, and it's really been my privilege to become your friend and your colleague over these past couple of years. Thank you. Tricia, this is another moment where I don't quite know what to say. We have been partners in this enterprise really for about 5 years, if you go back to when we first ran for the board. We learned how to run a campaign together. We had to learn about board leadership together far more quickly than we may have anticipated or liked. And we've experienced any number of ups and downs along the way. Now, I've said this to others before, but I'd like to say it publicly as well. You are truly one of the most impressive leaders that I have ever encountered. Your patience, your calm, your integrity, those are true gifts. And we could use a lot more people with those characters in public service. For what it's worth, I'm grateful that you've chosen to give those gifts to the Carmel Clay schools, and I can't tell you how thankful I am to have had this experience with you the past 5 years. Mr. Phillips. We've also been together at this for more than 4 years, and I hope you have had as much fun working with me as I have had working with you. When I reflect on our time together, I can't help but think about all the times we would meet for breakfast or meet for coffee, and how we would go back and forth about every conceivable issue that touched on our service. I admire your creativity, your energy, your ability to think outside the box. When Greg and I would get together, he'd inevitably bring me a book or an article or even a set of flow charts as we talked through the issues before us. So, Greg, I hope we can continue to share our ideas and friendship even when I leave this post. I could probably go on all night, but I think I've spoken long enough. I want to thank all of you and all of you for this wonderful opportunity and experience. It is truly something that I will always value. Thank you.
Mr. Vice President, as the chair of this meeting, may I say a few words on behalf of our president?
Please.
Layla obviously couldn't be here, but regrettably, she really did want to be here for this meeting to say goodbye and good luck, and so she sent some words along, so I'm just going to read it because they're her words, and I don't want them to be my words. She says, Andy, I view your term on the board like a day at Disney World. Although you have some experiences you'd rather not rehash, like the 5-hour wait time for Space Mountain, at the end of the day, you leave the park with some of the best memories of your life. I hope you leave your term with this sentiment. No regrets, just some wonderful memories. While the road traveled was not what you could have expected, it was paved with new relationships, experiences, and professional growth. All while doing this in the best interest of children. Your presence on the board will be missed very much. Not only were you my colleague, but a friend, a very caring friend who puts others before self. Thank you. Thank you for keeping children first in your decisions. Thank you for your professional leadership on the board. And thank you for being a friend in times of happiness and sorrow. You're an amazing colleague. I wish you the very best of luck in all your future endeavors.
Thank you.
And now, if I could, I have a few words. As you mentioned, almost 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, we were sworn in on the very same day, and after that, after taking a journey on a campaign side by side. And during those past 4.5 years, you've really poured your heart and soul into this job. But I don't think you ever saw it as a job, but a service to this community and to the kids in this community. You have a unique combination of skills that really have lent well to this district. You prioritize students in your approach to every decision, but at the same time, you're able to keep in mind the needs of all stakeholder groups. You have an uncanny ability to take a complex issue and break it down into manageable action steps. That's come in very helpful. You not only realize the importance of authentic communication, you're actually able then to take that theoretically and then put that into action and communicate with professionals, and communicate with parents who might have a special concern, and I know redistricting has been one of your favorites. But also students of all different ages. You've shared your knowledge of education, of the law, and your perspective as a parent in this position. You've really served with the utmost of honesty and integrity and compassion. And I, too, could probably go on for hours and hours because our history serving side by side has gone on that long, it seems like. But I just want you to know that you've really touched this district. And though your unique set of skills will really be sorely missed because you've mentored us along the way, this board and this district will really be better off and is ready to move on to the next step.
Thank you.
So I thank you, best of luck, and just know it has been an honor to serve by your side.
Thank you.
I have a little short thing. It's short.
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe that this is your last meeting. It's been an honor to have served on the school board with you during these past 2.5 years. You have been a wonderful mentor for me and often the voice of reason during our many discussions. You are, to me, an exemplary school board member. I wish you all the best in your position with IUPUI and whatever the future holds for you.
Thank you, Pam.
This is my chance for a rebuttal.
Rebuttal?
Andy, we're going to miss you. We really are. Mr. Klein has been such an important part of this board. He's wise beyond his years, and he leaves a hole. He really does. Kathy is going to step in and help to fill that hole, and the board will continue to move forward as it always has. But he's taught us quite a lot about boardsmanship, and for that we thank you very much. We would love to have kept him for a little bit longer. Maybe we could do a Jeff Carter and bring it back again sometime. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. We're going to move forward on the agenda, move to public participation. When I call your name, please state your name for the record and address. Familiar faces. Mr. Brian Lyday first.
Members of the board, for the record, my name is Brian Light, president of the Carmel Clay Education Association. By email, you've probably already received the same message, but we wanted to communicate it again, and that is action items 3, 5, and 8 are in regards to proposed new policies that affect the certified teaching staff, policy 3139, policy 3212, and policy 3213. These clearly fit within the parameters of state statute required discussion, and to date that discussion has not been had. Since these policies were first brought up back in February, we had understood that the board had taken them under advisement and had no knowledge that the board intended to move forward with them this evening until receiving the board's packet on Thursday. And we're asking that these be taken to district discussion so that the association has the opportunity for input. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Jeff Carter.
My name is Jeff Carter. I live 2312 Glebe Street in Carmel, Indiana. It's been a little time up there on that bench with all of you. So, Andrew, I just wanted to tell you congratulations. You've been you're a very level, you're an even keel kind of guy. You don't get excited about things. You run things well, and I think that you've always looked out for what's best for the district and all the kids. And I was proud to have served with you. And for Diane, yes, she deserves a medal for that, trust me. I'm always reminded when it was redistricting time and my lovely wife got up at a restaurant and she was going to the restroom and a person followed her into the bathroom and talked to her about redistricting. And she said, I didn't run for the board, he did. So the lady came back and sat down at the table to talk to me while Jan was away. So Diane's been through many similar situations, I know, and we appreciate the fact that she allowed you to stay here. So you were always one of those people that spoke up with the timely comments. I'm always reminded of that Latin phrase, quitasset consentire videtur, he who is silent is presumed to agree. You always came up with the right things at the right time for us, and it was great to serve with you. On the way over, Bruce and I were laughing, and we thought we could start with a roast here for you, but after all these nice things these people said, I just couldn't do it. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your service, and enjoy the rest of your time away. Monday nights, you'll fill the time in with other things, let me tell you. So, but the first couple of Monday nights, you'll be scratching your head going, sure will. Where's the packet? Where's all the stuff? But you'll get over it, trust me. I can assure you it will pass. So, thank you.
Jeff, thank you for being here. Next speaker, Mr. Bruce Calabrese.
My name is Bruce Calabrese. I live in Carmel. I live at Winter Court, not 29 West Main Street, as some of you may think. Of course, there's a lot to be said here tonight about Andy's service, and we all know the time and effort it takes to be on this board, and I was proud to serve, and I'm sure Andy and everybody before us has also served with the same passion. Now, I have a few things to say, and I hope I don't get carried away or buzzed out here. My children, 3 children went to school here in Carmel, and they've all done very well in their private lives. They raised their children here, and the education system here is beyond anything you can imagine. And everybody in this room, I'm sure, is proud of it. We have the highest standards, and this community is behind our school systems 100%. And what I want to say now is about our teachers, our boards, our community, our negotiations that I'm not happy with at this point. I'll start by saying anybody who realizes education system teachers are underpaid. Administrators are underpaid. But that's the way the school systems work in this country. In the private sector, everybody who's in education will be able to accept a job at higher wages, higher benefits, and all the perks that go along with it. But you've all chosen education because you have a passion. It's a passion that you can't describe unless you're an educator. So, with that, I want to relate a story. I traveled over the Thanksgiving vacation through LAX, LA Airport, and at the time, there were thousands of strikers, all the employees at LAX were on strike, waving flags, waving banners, shouting down people. And during that time, if you know this or not, our travel time during Thanksgiving is the highest in the country. Airports are swamped. People take 3 days to travel to see people they don't like, families they don't want to be with, and they do it out of something. And to meet thousands of people being disrupted at LAX is a nightmare. And what I'm saying here is, when it was all said and done, however it's been resolved, everybody who walked through LAX that day left with a sour taste in their mouth. They will no longer respect unions or associations, never again. In our community, I don't want that to happen. I don't like it. When I see picketers out there on the street, it's demeaning. You're going to leave sour taste in your mouth, in our mouths, with the community. They don't like it. They don't understand that you're underpaid. All they know is that you work 182 days a year, and you have 6 hours a day, and they just don't have the thought power to get through it. But they do respect our education. Now, what I'm saying is, the board, our superintendent, staff, please get together and work this out. All right? Don't let the newspapers determine what's right or wrong for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the items in the consent agenda. Mr. Phillips moves.
I'll second.
Ms. Hackett seconds. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Consent agenda passes. Moving along, we have an action agenda that consists of a number of board policies being brought forward for second reading. I am going to ask Dr. Dillon to come to the podium, but Dr. Dillon, before you begin, I am going to turn the floor over to my colleague, Ms. Knowles. Ms. Knowles was one of 2 members of this board who served as a policy subcommittee along with Ms. Spannenberg, and I'd like Ms. Knowles to set the context for this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. I want to provide some information regarding the progress the board has been making regarding our policies. Ms. Spannenberg and I are currently the board's policy committee and have been charged with the task of bringing revised or new policies to the board. It is important to note that all of the board's policies are relevant only as they pertain to one's employment in the Carmel School District and not to an employee's home or personal life. This past summer, the board felt it was important to have an attorney in David Day's office review the policies in the 3000 section. Once that analysis was completed, Mrs. Spannenberg and I met to review the suggestions. We also felt it was important to review all of the policies in the 3000 section, since many of those policies had been discussed at the beginning of the year as first readings, with the second reading being postponed. We asked Dr. Dillon to share the policies submitted by Neola as well. When considering policies, the procedure is to, first, look at suggestions from Neola or administration on possible revisions to current policy or the addition of new policies due to changes in Indiana or federal laws. We do this 2 to 3 weeks prior to the first reading. Second, we seek input on those policies. This input may come from board members, administrators, or CCEA if a policy addresses one or more of the current topics that can be discussed under Indiana Code 2029-6-7. Third, we bring a draft of the proposed policies to the board for a first reading. Fourth, we revise the policy. Fifth, we bring the suggested final draft to the board for a second reading, and then we vote on the policy or policies. Back in February 2012, Dr. Dillon brought several policies to the board for a first reading. At that time, the board had made many suggestions to be considered as part of the first reading. Prior to the board meeting, we received concerns from the leadership of CCEA stating that these policies were not brought to district discussion before the first reading. Because the board needed more time to consider the changes and wanted to give CCEA an opportunity to voice concerns in discussion, the board voted to postpone the second readings until further notice. It has now been about 10 months since that meeting, during which time discussion could have taken place regarding these policies, and it did not. After many meetings, during which we reviewed all of the suggestions from each board member, Mrs. Spannenberg and I are bringing to the board tonight many of those policies as a second reading in order to complete the process begun last February. We also wanted to bring closure to many of these policies due to the fact that Mr. Klein was a member of the past policy committee and participated in the discussions regarding changes. Please remember also that the board was sent some minor changes in the past week, and I would like for you to consider those when we are voting. And so Dr. Dillon will be presenting the policies for vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Klein, and members of the board, and Mrs. Nouse. Thank you for the excellent summary on how policies make it this far. I'm starting to feel like there's another person in the world that has a passion for policy like I do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're
I
welcome.
knew there was another person out there. I knew that. I bring to you tonight for a second reading a bylaw that was, as mentioned earlier, had a first reading in February of 2012. This is a recommended change that came to us from Neola. It is a current bylaw that we have on the books. Currently, it is entitled Indemnification. The new title will be Defense and Indemnification of Board Members. It has quite a bit of extensive change in the language, and so you are actually going to throw out the old policy and replace it with this new policy.
Need a motion to adopt the new policy?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Knowles,
Second?
second by Ms. Hackett. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Policy passed.
Thank you very much. I now bring for you a group of 3 policies. If you remember from the past, Neola has recently moved into the category of adding administrative policies. In the past, administration was covered under the professional staff category, but sometimes that did not quite fit, or it seemed a little bit of an awkward fit. And so now, when appropriate, Neola has brought forward policies for administrators, policies for professional staff, and policies for support staff. These are 3 new policies being brought forward titled Staff Discipline, 1139, 3139, and 4139.
Going to take these as a group. I need a motion to approve each of those 3 policies.
So moved?
Moved by Ms. Hackett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knowles. Discussion.
Yes.
Ms. Knowles.
In the first paragraph of these 3 policies, we have a statement that says, "Nothing in this policy shall limit the right of an employee to full and then it says due process," right? So it should say fair due process. That was something that was not included. And I would like to propose that we add language which is current with contract language, which would mean to full and fair due process as well as just cause, and just add those words.
Ms. Knowles, would you like to make a motion to that effect?
Yes, I so move.
No, second. All right, so we have a motion to amend the policy to change the language to read to full and fair due process as well as
Just cause.
just cause. That amendment was made by Ms. Knowles. It was seconded by Mr. Phillips. Do we have discussion on the amendment? Mr. Phillips?
Yes. I'm very happy to second the amendment because I, for one, have publicly stated the intention of this board to maintain the current contracts language until such time as those contract provisions, including staff discipline, can be changed according to an open process that allows adequate input from all stakeholders. So by this amendment, my belief is that this policy will coexist with our current contract provision on staff discipline, which is in Article 7 of the current contract. So this amendment, in effect, allows that current language to continue unabated until such time, if it ever happens, that this board should decide to make a change.
Thank you. Further discussion on Ms. Nowell's amendment? If not, let's vote on the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment passes. We return then to the three policies on the table, 1139, 3139, and 4139. With the amendment made, is there discussion? Ms. Hackett.
I just had a point to make. Back in February, when this came up, and some conversations with the board members since then, the term progressive discipline was discussed as far as its exact meaning, and I want to thank Pam that I wanted to make that clear via email, a clarification, and she looked up several definitions that put everybody right on board. So not to belabor the point, because these are things that can be Googled and really fall right in line with how I felt these policies read, and I just wanted to make sure everybody was on board and how that was. So just want to bring that in, that discussion as a clarification, so that I feel comfortable we're all understanding this policy the same way.
Thank you, Ms. Hackett. Further discussion, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. I'm encouraged that this district would adopt a policy that embraces the concept of progressive discipline, and that's why I very much support this new policy. To me, progressive discipline suggests fairness, flexibility, and appropriateness, all with an intent to work with an employee to bring conduct, behavior in line with expectations in the briefest and most humane possible way. So I think it's a terrific step for the district.
Further discussion? If not, we're going to vote on the group of policies 1139, 4139, and 3139. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed? Passes. Dr. Dillon.
Thank you very much. Our next group of policies fall in the area of whistleblowers. These are two new policies and one revised policy. We had a policy 3212 that is being replaced by this new policy 3212.
Need a motion to adopt, and we're going to take 3212 and 4212 together. So a motion to approve 3212 and 4212.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Nowell, second by Mr. Phillips. Discussion on the whistleblower policies.
Are we including 1412 too?
Oh, and 1412, my apologies. 1412, 3212, and 4212.
I do have a
Ms.
comment. Again, back in February, when we were during our discussion, our board discussion here at the meeting, it was, I brought up the fact of because I think the original proposed language included board members, and we had a discussion ensuing with that. And I just want to say I can appreciate that the policy 1412 and its sister policies 3212 and 4212 really address certain employee groups. And I think that's good to key in on that, but I also want to state publicly this does not exempt board members from the standard whatsoever, which is from the same standard that we expect of our employees. But that is covered actually in a different policy, 1105, operating principles for the board and administration, which is not up for changed or proposed changes. So,
Thank you very much for that clarification. Is there further discussion? Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Klein. I would just add that when the administration, the association's leadership spoke with us last February about concerns on this policy, one primary concern, as I recall, was that this might introduce an atmosphere which would be unfortunate for staff morale, because we would have teachers blowing the whistle on other teachers and so forth. I think I'm persuaded that will not be the case. I think bad behavior it needs to be ferreted out, and we're not talking about minor things, we're talking about serious breaches of policy and statute, so that works to the benefit of not only students, but teachers in the entire community when everyone's on their best behavior. So I fully support this.
Further discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote on policies 1412, 3212, and 4212. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. They pass. Dr. Dillon.
Thank you. Brings us to our last group of policies this evening. Policy 1613, Student Supervision and Welfare. Policy 3213, Student Supervision and Welfare. And Policy 4213, Student Supervision and Welfare. These are new and/or revised policies to address the social interaction with students through online social networking sites and the responsibility of school staff to maintain an appropriate relationship and appropriate boundaries with students.
Thank you, Dr. Dillon. I need a motion to approve these three policies.
So moved?
Moved by Ms. Hackett. Second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knowles. Do we have discussion on 1613, 3213, and 4213?
Yes, I have.
Ms. Knowles.
Yes. I understand that there have been some questions about this policy, especially the paragraph on electronically transmitting personal identified images, and it's the paragraph, it's the paragraph that shall only engage in electronic communication with students. This paragraph, again, I reiterate that any policy that we are putting into place only covers teachers, professional staff members, administrators on the job. It does not cover anybody in their own personal life. So anything that is referenced in the policy only covers what they would do at their position. I would also like to state that I think the intent of this policy is that not that a teacher or a staff member needs to go to a principal or a staff member to gain permission every single time they do something in their classroom. I'm thinking that this is a blanket policy, so if a teacher would start a website, then they have permission from the principal to do the website. So things that are put on their website, which have to do with co-curricular or pre-approved matters, then for the rest of the year, they would have that permission. So it wouldn't be a constant ask all the time policy. So if that becomes an issue, then we would need to know about that, and we would address it at that time.
Thank you, Ms. Knowles. Mr. Phillips?
Yes, I guess I'd like to ask Pam. Pam, do you feel that the language that we have in front of us adequately expresses what you've just said? Or do we need to make some changes?
I know that the beginning of it said professional staff members shall only engage in when such it is directly related to curricular matters. But then it says with prior approval of the principal. So that does not necessarily say that they have to go every single time, but I think the intent of the language is that they have the prior approval, so then they have a blanket. They may just do what they need to do in their classroom as long as it's related. So if we, as a board, feel that needs to be changed, then we can do that. But I also want everybody to realize that policies are not set in stone. So once a policy is adopted, that doesn't mean it's there forever. So, and in reference to that, there was a policy that we looked at in 2011, and we are looking at it again, even though it's not that old. So policies can continue to come back up to the board if there is an issue. So if we find there is an issue, then somebody needs to bring it back to our attention, or the administration needs to bring it back to our attention so we can address it at that time. And again, I know we're going to be looking into a staff handbook or something similar to that once negotiations and the contract is finalized, and we're going to be talking about contract provisions to include in the handbook or possibly in policy. And so if there's a policy that doesn't address that or needs to be changed at that time, there's nothing that precludes us from doing that.
Thank you, Ms. Niles. Further comments or discussion on these final 3 policies? Mr. Phillips?
I guess I was fishing to see if there was some language that you would like to suggest, or is this basically the way you think we should go forward, Pam?
Well, I hadn't proposed any language. Let's see. I think the way I think with the provision that we've said, it says with prior approval of the principal, so I don't know if we would need to say does not need to happen every single time, or just make the statement that doesn't need to happen every time and then see where it goes from there.
Further discussion? Now we'll move to a vote on policies 3213, 1613, and 4213. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I have to say, I oppose this on the grounds that I'm not certain that this expresses exactly what the board has in mind.
Policy passes by a 3-to-1 vote.
Okay.
Moving forward on our, Dr. Dillon, I think that concludes
I
our,
believe that brings us to the end of our policies for the evening.
thank you very much, Dr. Dillon. Moving forward on our agenda, we move to the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President, members of the board, distinguished colleagues, and fellow citizens. During my service here in our district over the last almost 6 years, I have come to find, I have to hit my button, sorry. I have come to find that CCS leadership is really like running a relay race. And our relay race here in our corporation is decidedly a team effort. A little bit less complicated than my photo, but you can understand you can't always find the precise photo that you may want. But our relay race as a team involves exemplary colleagues, a very dedicated staff, involved parents and guardians, engaged students, interested citizens and community groups, and a very passionate Board of Education. The superintendent, of course, carries the baton in this case. This very rare photo of me as a youth racing forward, you'll notice I'm well behind most of the other members of the other teams. Well, yeah, that's an excellent point. But in fact, the superintendent is responsible to be out in front, which I have always taken very seriously in the Carmel Clay Schools relay race. And out in front means, of course, leading while monitoring our progress. A relay race is designed, of course, to ascertain where you are on the track, how you're doing, and you have to monitor that, of course, very closely. Now, this is a little bit unusual, and my metaphor doesn't quite hold up because there is no finish line in the relay race for the Carmel Clay Schools. So, of course, we're always running. We've been running quite successfully for 125 years, as a matter of fact. But monitoring our progress while we run has always been something that allows our school district to create winning conditions for our young people. And monitoring progress ensures that the leadership baton is exchanged at the best possible time. Now, I think it's very important to look at our progress. We are, without question, achievement-focused. As I carry the baton and race to the very best of my aging ability, these are some of the achievement-focused items that I would call to your attention. They are certainly not all of them, but they illustrate the swift completion of our turn around the track and some of the successes that we've actually could include in our progress. In monitoring our progress as I run, I think it can be fairly said that we set the standard. The Carmel Clay Schools has always taken great pride in setting the standard. The standards that you see here mentioned are again among those that we can see as we move around the track, and certainly that while I'm not as swift as I used to be in the old days, even I can tell that these are keys to our progress. I think, too, in terms of monitoring our progress, that we are community connected. All of these areas, again, simply exemplify or symbolize the things that we really truly believe in as a school district, that we've made great progress on, and certainly will continue to be part of the relay race that we participate in. And I would submit to you that part of our progress and part of the monitoring that I would do is that the Carmel Clay Schools really are a great place to work. These are just some, again, of the exemplars that would illustrate that point, and certainly that I take into account as I move around the track. There's positive progress. Again, these are just some of the ways that I can tell that that's where we're headed. We're on track for future success. The future success, as illustrated here, high achievement for all students, database decision-making and database best practices, performance qualified school district designation, tremendous community support and partnerships, and yes, it wouldn't be me speaking if I didn't note that we are, in fact, systemic, systematic, and sustainable. With that note, we've made great progress. I can see great progress as superintendent, so therefore it is baton time. Since I see that our Carmel Clay Schools are making A-plus progress, it is the proper time to exchange the baton. Therefore, on June the 30th, 2013, I will step down as superintendent of the Carmel Clay Schools. Before the baton exchange, I believe that the board needs ample time to search for, identify, and select the next superintendent for this outstanding school corporation. And I, of course, pledge to continue very focused leadership, because I'll still run for this outstanding school corporation. And before exchanging the baton, which of course really won't technically happen for about 6 months, and to continue this great relay on behalf of our children, it's time to offer my thanks and best wishes to our students and their families. We really are most fortunate to work with and to be part of, as has already been expressed this evening, tremendous young people and tremendous families. To my truly outstanding Carmel Clay School colleagues, each and every one, we have more than 2,000 colleagues that I consider colleagues in the very real sense of that. We work together, we strive together, and we think together about how best to move this school corporation forward. My thanks and best wishes to the Board of Education, some of whom who have returned this evening to be part of Andy's farewell, and to the current serving board, and to those who will take the board chair here very shortly. I thank them and wish them, of course, every success. And, of course, thanks and best wishes to the many partners and friends of the Carmel Clay Schools. Indeed, because the relay race goes on, and the race is never ending, towards a finish line that doesn't exist, but always towards excellence. And I am confident that Carmel Clay Schools will continue to run like the wind towards excellence. Mr. Vice President, that concludes my report.
Dr. Swenson, I've already expressed my sentiments tonight about my views regarding your leadership. I know the board will move forward in searching for a successor, but I will say I believe they'll have big shoes to fill.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is board report, so if there are comments from board members, I'm happy to entertain them now. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. I just would like to say just a couple of things about Jeff's announcement. One of the primary responsibilities of the Board of Trustees is to hire the best superintendent we can possibly find to provide day-to-day leadership for our schools. Having been part of the last hiring effort, which was well-planned, guided by experts in finding superintendent talent and extended well beyond the borders of Indiana, I can report that we did all we could in order to find the best candidate for the job. We found that candidate right here in our midst, and that was Dr. Swenson. He was absolutely the best person for the job. I won't heap praises on Dr. Swenson at this time, even though they're richly deserved, for there will be a better time for that before long. But I will say to the community that this board will once again do everything in its power to find the best candidate to fill Dr. Swenson's large, but let me say nimble, shoes. The board has already begun preparing for the task, and I believe will move forward with all deliberate speed in its search. And just as we've been successful before, I'm confident that with your help, the board will once again find a capable and energetic leader for Carmel Clay Schools, although perhaps one who cannot sing quite as well as Dr. Swenson.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Are there further board reports? Ms. Knowles?
Yes, I just want to report that I went to the Holiday Spectacular at the high school, and it was superb, as usual, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, especially Santa Claus.
Thank you, Ms. Knowles. Ms. Hackett?
I'll remain speechless, thanks.
With that, then, I believe we've reached the end of our agenda, and I will call our meeting adjourned.